district is an uncontested race, so we are not including that. For everybody's information, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization and our purpose is, and our goal is informed and active citizen participation in the political process. The League does not support individual candidates or oppose them. We do get actively involved in issues and support or oppose issues. And as I said, we're very happy today to be partnering with the NAACP and the Peoria Public Library. The candidates will have 60 seconds each to make opening statements and closing statements. And when asked a question, they'll have 90 seconds to respond, up to 90 seconds to respond to that question. You don't have to fill the whole 90 seconds if you don't want to. In each case, we will be starting with the challenger in the race. So for the first district, the first opening statement will come from Denise Jackson. For the second district, the first opening statement will come from Peter Kobach. And then we will rotate back and forth to make sure each candidate has an opportunity to answer first and to answer last. Our listening and viewing audience are welcome to submit suggested questions, and we'll try to accommodate some of those, although we end up usually with more questions than we have time. So, and Alice Jackson from the Peoria Public Library will be our timer, and the candidates, myself, and all of you who are watching will be able to see when they're running out of time, and I'm pretty good at getting the hook out and pulling you off and stopping a conversation if I need to. But I have a lot of faith in all four of our candidates that they'll hold to the time frames, sort of. Okay, with that, I would to ask Denise, unless the candidates have any questions before we officially get started. Okay, I guess I've explained everything then. We will start first with opening statement from Denise Jackson, candidate for the 1st Council District.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you to the NAACP and the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I am a native of Peoria. I have lived on the South Side all of my life, with the exception of 11 years when I lived in upstate New York. And I have seen our neighborhood when it was viable, stable, and unfortunately, I've witnessed a lot of the economic decline, which is why I'm running for the 1st District City Council seat. When I'm elected to the 1st District, I will implement a 3-step action plan, which will involve making our communities safer by upgrading lighting, putting lighting in places where it does not exist, including alleys. I'll also implement rain gardens to help deal with the stormwater overflow problem. And thirdly, I will implement a program to deal with illegal dumping. We have had a continuous problem with people dumping illegal tires in and throughout our community, and this has to stop. Thank you.
Now, Denise Moore, District 1 Council candidate.
I thank the NAACP League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I am married to Gary Moore, for some of you who don't know me, and we have a daughter and 2 grandsons. We moved to the East Bluff and then decided to move to the South Side to help with the revitalization here. I have degrees in business administration, banking and finance, and insurance. I started several businesses that were cultural expressions, a business that brought Black culture to the Bloomington Normal community, and more art and water on the Peoria riverfront. I started 2 nonprofit organizations, 2 radio stations, and 5 years ago, I started the Minority Business Development Center on the corner of Garden and Adams, where after $650,000 of renovations through nonprofit fundraising, our programming is aimed at bringing people out of poverty. I currently serve as the liaison on 5 city commissions, on the board of PCCO, the Downtown Development Corporation, the State of Illinois Small Business Development Board, and I'm also a member of St. Paul Baptist Church. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll switch to the 2nd District Council candidates. First, Peter Kobach.
Hey everyone, well, I want to say thank you to the hosts. I'm a proud member and supporter of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the Peoria Public Library. My name is Peter Kobach, and I like to start out my introductions by saying how much I love the 2nd District. It's my home, and just like you, I try to care for my home. That's why I've served on the board of my neighborhood association. I've been a representative to the West Bluff Council. When it snows, I've shoveled sidewalks in front of businesses and food pantries. And I volunteered to weed and garden for Renaissance Park Community Association and the Western Avenue Greenway. But I've also made a career out of helping government do more good for more people. When I worked at City Hall, I was praised by elected leaders, including Councilman Graham, for my innovation and efficiency in my projects. I've also worked at Peoria Public Schools, where I recruited young people from across the country to move to Peoria, and now I work for the Peoria Park District, expanding opportunities for youth outside of school. Through all these experiences, I've learned the root causes of problems in our community, and I'm excited tonight to share my plan on specifically how to address those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly not last, but certainly not least, candidate Chuck Grab for the 2nd District.
Thank you very much for having this forum here on this Saturday morning. I'm a lifelong Peorian, educated at Bradley University, Northern Illinois University. Have lived most of my life on the West Bluff. For 33 years, was a Peoria Public Schools educator, starting my career at Peoria High School teaching government and economics, and then served in administrative capacities the last 24 years. I believe Peoria's best days are ahead. We're coming at a very difficult time for our country, for our world, the pandemic. I believe economic forces are about to be unleashed that will create lots of jobs for Peoria, including the green model and the rebuild of our infrastructure. We already secured money to rebuild infrastructure, and I'm looking forward, if reelected, to the next 4 years for Peoria.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go to questions, and we'll start. The first responder to our first question will be Denise Moore, candidate for the 1st District. Can you please explain what you think the 3 most critical issues in your district are and how you plan to address them?
Absolutely. Those issues are economic development, housing, and employment, in my opinion. Economic development includes everything from the infrastructure that's on the roads, the businesses that are here. We talk about housing, the lack of decent, affordable housing, and we're talking about employment. So let me share with you. I am on the national, I was the only person from the state of Illinois invited to go to Washington, D.C. to talk about affordable housing. And Peoria is part of a program that is the model for what we need to be doing in housing. You just saw Taft Homes indicate they're going to spend $47 redeveloping that whole process. I worked on that for the last 5 years. Economic development, the Minority Business Development Center is there bringing free programming to help people come out of poverty and also getting those folks ready for employment. If we don't have people employed, we don't have decent housing, it meshes into the lack of educational opportunities, and our children are our most important asset in this town. If we are looking at everything else except what is helping our children to become viable, then we're not looking in the right direction. And that is what the last 8 years have meant for me. That is what the next 4 years, if I am blessed to receive your vote, will mean for me, making sure that our children have a future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, same question. 3 most critical issues, and explain how you would plan to address at least one of them, all 3 if you can.
I believe our 3 most critical issues right now are safety, infrastructure, and a lack of new and affordable housing. I plan to deal with the safety issue by, as I mentioned, upgrading our lighting. We have the most number of vacant lots here on the south side than any community throughout the city of Peoria. When you're here at night, it is extremely unsafe because our neighborhoods are dark with numerous vacant lots. Our alleys are dark. So when you come outside, it is incredibly unsafe. I am planning on upgrading lighting, installing alley lighting in areas where people don't have lighting behind their homes. Many have indicated to me that it is unsafe coming out to their garages at night. They see cars parked in the alleys, and a lot of times in the morning, there's been dumping that's occurred, whether it's furniture, television, old tires. So this is a real safety issue that we plan to tackle. It's been going on for a number of years. Secondly, we need to deal with our infrastructure. Our roads have not been upgraded, many of them throughout my lifetime. We plan to seek federal dollars through the National Resource Network. President Biden has talked about the infrastructure program. And lastly, we need to also get money for new housing. We have no inventory of new affordable homes here, especially on the south side. So we need to deal with these issues that have been going on for more than the last 7.5 years.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we'll switch to the 2nd District candidates. Mr. Grab, you're first.
Well, first of all, continue to cultivate Peoria as the world-class medical research and healing center that it's become. This will mean lots of jobs and tens of millions of dollars coming into our community. Just a stone's throw away from me is Unity Point Hospital and OSF, their main facilities. We've seen close to $3 billion invested in these hospitals in recent years. It's our #1 employer now. Secondly, infrastructure must be at the focal point of our efforts. We have money right now to do Western, Main Street, and Knoxville, and we have to continue to deal with all the other roads in 2nd District that are in bad shape and throughout our city. And we must look forward to the most gigantic public works project in the history of this community, and that's the Green Model rebuild, which came about as a result of the execution of the consent decree with EPA. And of course, unless we have something called public safety, people being safe in their neighborhoods, their children able to play outside, we will have nothing, regardless of what's happening with the Green Model or with our $250 million cancer center on the East Bluff and all the great things happening with our hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. Greb. Mr. Kobach?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think it's important to be specific and lay out detailed ideas and programs that a candidate is bringing forward. You know, Mr. Greb often talks about the biomedical hub in Peoria, but it's important to mention that, you know, our facilities that currently exist, like the Next Innovation Center on West Main Street in the 2nd District, is only 40% occupied. I think it's the role of our elected leaders to do as much as they can to fill what we've got and not just talk about ideas, but specific policies and programs they'll enact. Here are my top 3 issues for the 2nd District. The first is poverty and economic opportunity. The poverty rates are the highest in the 1st District, but in the 2nd District, they're 3 times as high as they are in the northern zip codes of Peoria. So I'm proposing specific ideas like the creation of a land bank that would transform vacant and underutilized properties to raise property taxes and create more opportunities for affordable housing in the 2nd District. The second thing is public safety. I'm proposing specific ideas like public safety opportunity zones that route resources to areas with the highest crime rates and contact with police, community navigators that bring in social workers, mental health workers, and outreach workers alongside or instead of police to help address the root causes of crime. And my third issue is strong neighborhoods. When I worked at the city, I made sure that we prioritized small businesses and entrepreneurs through small scale development so people could invest back into their neighborhood. And, you know, the other city council members mentioned big funding projects coming down the line. We need to make sure that equity is front and center with them.
Whoop, nip it. Okay, next question. Recently, the fire department and police department reported on data on recruitment, training, retention, including race and gender, to the council and the manager. Morale and a sense of feeling appreciated was stated as an issue, particularly in the police department. I'm sorry, particularly in the fire department. What can you do to address some of the challenges to recruit and retain a diverse workforce for both the police department and the fire department? And Ms. Jackson, you answer first.
Well, I consider public safety a sacred cow. These individuals, police, fire, public works, code enforcement, those are the frontline departments for the city of Peoria. I would definitely seek to try to restore morale by trying to, as people have retired, to hire additional people to fill those positions. We've gutted code enforcement and public works to the extent that our neighborhoods are the worst that I've seen them down here on the south side. So I would restore morale by recruitment, having conversations with individuals, getting ideas from them about what they think is best in terms of restoring morale. And I would also reassure them that I'm a city council representative who will work for them, who will speak on their best interests, and who will make sure that we will not use those departments when the city is suffering to cut, because that is the front line. And if our neighborhoods are not safe, if we're not able to get inspectors out to take care of the blight, and if we don't have police officers to help keep our neighborhoods safe, then we are in real trouble. So I would work with those individuals to see what it is in terms of their priorities, and I would reassure them that we will protect public safety to the fullest extent.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, same question.
Thank you for that question, and I'll tell you why I thank you. Through the Minority Business Development Center, which is an organization that I started some 5 years ago, we have a radio station there, WPNV 106.3 FM. And several years ago, the radio station actively reached out to the city of Peoria to advertise their recruitment on the radio. And that was when they had a recruitment fair at the NAACP office. And if you talk to the HR department now, they will tell you, because of that effort, they had the largest number of African Americans apply for the police department and the fire department. Also, during this time, in the discussion of how to keep and retain African Americans and other minorities, it was decided that perhaps there needed to be some mentors assigned to the new individuals who came on board. And so when they came on board, this was several years ago, they had someone calling them, asking them if they had any questions, what they could do to be more available. The city even allowed for the recruitment to have, they have to go through a training process, and they were able to come in advance and do some training to determine if they were going to be a good fit for that role. So we are currently now recruiting through the radio station and other efforts, because we understand the community has to be represented in the police and fire department so that we don't have a George Floyd situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same question now to Mr. Kobach, second district candidate.
So I think one of the reasons that our fire department and our police department and really all city staff sometimes have low morale is that year after year, they face cuts. And my opponent, Mr. Graham, has been in office, has been in politics since 1993. And we are not in a position now where we can't stave off more cuts. We've sprawled as a city, we've annexed new land, and we haven't grown our population to match it, and we haven't funded our pensions enough. So now every year, everyone feels like they're on the chopping block. So that's why it's important for a candidate, and that's why what I'm doing is bringing ideas about how to grow our population, how to support small businesses and entrepreneurs to stay here so that we have a stronger tax base, so that we don't have to go to department heads and ask them, who should we cut from your department? It's so important that our firefighters and our police officers, our code enforcement, our public works engineers don't feel like their job is on the line every time we look at the budget. But here are two more things to recruit diverse staff. One is focus on building a diverse pipeline. One of the reasons that usually we have fewer applicants who are diverse is because look at the statistics in Peoria. Unfortunately, we're a segregated city where if you're a person of color, you have less opportunities in life to get to the point where you can have a strong application. And secondly, we need to recruit diverse leadership in our departments. Take a look at the leaders of our departments. They don't represent our city.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, same question.
Fundamentally, you cannot build the core basic service departments when you have a budget that is reducing funding for our most important core basic services, police and fire rescue services. And a quasi police function is, of course, code enforcement as well. That has been happening in part because of ultra left agendas and far right, ultra conservative, let's balance the budget regardless of how it impacts public safety. Those agendas unfortunately have played out, and too many council people have listened to those agendas and are interested in not paying attention to what the people of Peoria really want. They don't want $8 million spent on a failed hotel project. I said no when I was approached about a subsidy to Pierre Marquette when I was there. But every time we try to build these departments and we have to start cutting them, guess who goes out the door first? Almost always minorities are disproportionately impacted. The best reflection of this community's values is our budget. And we must be sure the first thing that's taken care of is our core basic services, and that would be police, fire, and of course, public works.
Okay, thank you. This next round, I'm going to ask a separate question to the first district candidates and then a different one to the second district candidate. So, and Ms. Moore, you'll be answering first. Recently, there has been interest in relocating the United States Postal Service operations at the State Street location to expand the warehouse district for green space as well as residential and commercial development. Price tag mentioned is $10 million, with the city looking to state lawmakers for funding. What is your position on this proposed project?
So for the post office, most people don't realize that that area is in a flood zone also. That area, that post office has been there for many, many years. It is old. It is not necessarily meeting the needs of current technology and needs of our community. And so the relocation of the post office, if that is what they choose to do, is something that I would support. I would support it because it opens up, as you indicated, green space for the riverfront. There's a plan that we're looking at. There's no plan in place right now, but there's a plan right now that folks along the riverfront are considering, the riverfront development that would open up that whole front part of the riverfront as a river walk. It would bring in more green space. We're talking about additional dog parks. We're talking about walking paths and trails and those kinds of things that would be there in that space, but built in such a way that when it floods, and where we live next to the river, it will flood, that it is an area that can be continue to be utilized even if it floods. There were some plans to even place floating platforms out there. So as the river rose and fell, those platforms would rise and fall. So I support modernizing our postal service and increasing the efficiency, which if that means moving it to a different location, if they choose, I would support that.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, same question.
Well, I'm a regular user of that particular branch of the post office, and I think the post office is, again, one of those essential services that we should continually support. But I would do my due diligence first and foremost. This is something that post office employees have signed off on and are in favor of, then I would support it, okay? I think we should always ask those individuals who are being impacted first of their opinions before we make decisions on their behalf. So we have to do our due diligence in terms of finding out what they think is best for them. And as the councilwoman said, that area is subject to a lot of flooding. We don't want to waste money, but whatever is done, we have to make sure that it's done in a way that it's efficient and will provide the kinds of services that residents have been accustomed to. And I think we also need to make sure that as we look to expand green space along the riverfront, that we're doing so in a way that residents have agreed to. Too often we think we know what people want and we don't ask them. And so before we go off making decisions for them, let's do our due diligence by making sure that all parties impacted have voices at the table.
Thank you. And now for the second district candidates, and Mr. Greb, you'll answer first. Bradley University is a major institution in the second district. Can you talk about the impact the university has on the district and vice versa, and how you propose to either maintain or develop a positive working relationship between the city and the university?
We have a wonderful working relationship with Bradley University, not so much a number of years ago when I first came to the second district position because of an unfortunate incident involving a fraternity house. But we have healed those wounds. One of the first things I asked the West Bluff Council to do was to have a student from Bradley University as an ex officio non-voting member attending West Bluff Council meetings. I thought it was important to talk with the students about the community and not just about the students. And it's worked very well. Bradley University is our fourth biggest employer. We have to make certain Main Street is a vibrant corridor where people feel safe to come and that our community and our neighborhoods around it are safe. Bradley has just undergone an over $100 million expansion. It's coming out of the pandemic. we're going to be back to classroom learning, barring something unforeseen in the fall. So Bradley has a huge impact on our economy, and also the adjacent neighborhoods must be stable, or the parents will not want to send their children to Bradley University. I enjoy a good working relationship with President Stanford and enjoyed a very good relationship with Dr. Joanne Glasser after I was elected to the 2nd District position. Bradley University is a gorgeous campus with collegiate Gothic architecture. It blends in well with the historic heritage neighborhoods all around it. I can't imagine what our community would be like without our wonderful Bradley University, and I am a Bradley alum.
Thank you. Mr. Kovac, same question.
I will continue to advocate for Bradley and the students in the same ways that I have in my personal life and in this campaign. You know, last week I went on campus and I helped show students how to register to vote and why it was so important to vote. When I was on my neighborhood association, I also advocated that students be involved so that they see the issues that residents, homeowners, and renters have, and so that we see the issues that students have. Right now, I currently have an intern and volunteers on my campaign because I think it's important for them to be on the front lines of change in Peoria. And I'm proposing that after I get elected, I continue to use my city stipend to pay for a Bradley intern to support city services. I think we should expand the amount of internships we have across the city so that we take advantage of the expertise of students to make our city better. When I volunteered with the Renaissance Park Community Association, we'd meet in the garden that used to be on West Main Street, and we'd start cleaning up the community. It was, I've participated in so many ways to get students involved because I believe they're an integral part of our community. At the same time, I'm not afraid to go to Bradley when there's an issue that impacts our community. Like when they were considering removing WCBU, I started a petition with my neighbors and I met with Bradley representatives to let them know how important the Peoria Public Radio Station was, not only to the 2nd District, but to the entire city of Peoria.
Will be one that someone has sent in to us. So we've had several questions come in. But homelessness appears to be a growing problem in the city of Peoria. What would you advocate for to address both the safety of the homeless people, safety of other people in the community, and resources for homelessness in our community? And Ms. Jackson, you'll answer first.
Well, thank you for asking that question. You know, I think with the onset of the pandemic, we've seen even more homelessness throughout our community. I am a strong proponent of programs like the New Hope Apartments. Homelessness is not, it's a complex situation. But I think we have to reach out to individuals. We have to start first and foremost by providing additional housing for individuals who are homeless. And we have to try to work with them to provide the resources for them to make them become self-sufficient individuals and who are able to eventually make the transition back into the community in housing. So I think we have to possibly seek additional federal funds to deal with this, because I'm sure with the onslaught of the pandemic, we have more homeless people than we've ever seen. So we have to make resources available. We have to be willing to reach out and make caseworkers available, housing, and it's just a problem that I think is not going to go away. So we have to put resources in place and be prepared to work with homeless individuals, because they are a part of our community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Moore, same question.
It's interesting to me that now that homelessness is reaching out to other districts, now suddenly it's a problem. If anyone has been watching in this community, they have noticed that in the 1st District, we've had homelessness for years. It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen in 2020 when COVID hit. It's been here for years. And it was only after it started appearing more prominent in other districts that now all of a sudden we have to jump and do something. Well, let me tell you what the city has been part of, a continuum of care program. There are other programs that are currently going on right now in the city of Peoria that is trying to address homelessness. And let's not make a mistake. There are people who are homeless who, when you talk to them, and I have, Some of them don't want your handout. They don't want you to make them feel like they're doing something wrong. They have a right to live where they want to live. Now, I would agree that if folks lived in housing and nice warm apartments and cool apartments in the summer or houses, that would be a more appropriate place. And so, yes, we need to make sure that we are reaching out to them at the local, state, and federal levels. There's a lot of federal funds that are coming in and state funds that are coming in now, and groups that are working with the homeless right now in Peoria. But I'm glad other people see it's a problem the way it's been in the 1st District for years.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Kovac. You're muted, Peter.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without someone.
I knew I would say it sooner or later. I just didn't think it'd be you.
So this is why it's so important for a city to be guided by equity. And equity is mentioned a lot, but it's not often described. And it's when you take into account someone's background and someone's situation when deciding where resources and where opportunities are allocated. I think it's important for equity to be part of the city's strategic plan so that we finally make a goal of ending homelessness in our community. We need to stand up and say that in 2021, we can't allow for homelessness to be a challenge for people in our community. And in addition to putting it on our strategic plan, once again, I think it's important for candidates to have detailed proposals of what they might be doing to actually improve the situation for those experiencing homelessness. That's why I'm proposing a land bank, once again, that would aid in revitalizing vacant land. That's why I'm proposing community navigators, which include street outreach workers and mental health workers and social workers, so that we don't overburden our law enforcement who are experts at fighting violent crime and instead send other folks to support those who are experiencing homelessness. And it also requires direct action because in the meantime, we still have folks who are struggling on the streets, which is why when the pandemic struck, I supported starting a mutual aid network that provided resources and direct aid to folks experiencing homelessness, and why I've raised funds and money for the Westmark Food Pantry on Moss and for the food pantry on Ellis Street, because we need to take action now.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, same question on homelessness, please.
Once again, there are folks who want to do things on the cheap, and it always ends up costing more money. If, for example, cutting police, cutting fire, cutting code enforcement, doing mental health in what was supposedly going to be a cheaper, less expensive way by closing our regional mental health centers. We had a titanic battle in this city about the fate of Zeller Zone Center. It was closed. That created a lot of problems, only aggravated, as Denise Jackson pointed out, by the pandemic. We have within our grasp right now the ability to take care of almost all our homeless people by utilizing Headington Oaks, which was voted to be built some time ago to help our seniors and be part of our broader social safety net, to use that to help provide housing for our homeless and supportive services, and also space to help people with mental health issues. I want to stress this. When the people went to vote to rebuild what was Bellwood, because it was a rundown facility, they wanted Headington Oaks to be part of our public safety and caring social safety net. So for us to walk away from that and not use it for what's one of our most critical needs, and that's dealing with people with substance abuse problems and mental health issues, would be criminal. And already I believe the discussion has begun involving both the manager and the county administrator on how that can be done.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do one more question and then we'll go to closing statements because we'll have the other 4 candidates joining us fairly soon. The city is in line to receive significant funding in the coming days out of the large pandemic relief bill. And I realize that all the details have not been communicated down to city officials yet on exactly how it could be spent. Nevertheless, it's important to understand how each of you as candidates within whatever parameters exist, where would you prioritize the expenditure of some of those funds? And we will start with Ms. Moore. You're muted. Yep.
Thank you.
2 for 2.
Technology. As you've indicated, that $47 million, we don't know yet how it has been decided to be appropriated. What we do know is that what we're trying to do is to replace those funds in departments that severely cut people. Councilman Graham talked about code enforcement. That is a department that I almost live in. We've got more going on in code enforcement in the first district than we have in years. I saved the alley lighting fund. I've got cameras for dumping in various parts of the community. We have even caught people because of those cameras that I had installed. And so we have to look at first how to replace people that we have lost due to the budget cuts, then how to replace funding in departments that are serving, providing essential services. And then what is left over, there is no leftover. And what we need to understand is that this is not extra money. This is money that we lost from COVID, businesses being shut down. We were looking at borrowing $10 million. This will allow us not to have to borrow that $10 million. And so this is not extra money. This is money that was lost. And my first priority is bringing people back on the budget and bringing resources back to essential services. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you for that question. I think we should first and foremost restore jobs to where they have been cut, especially as it relates to public safety. That's the front line, and we have to have a safe city and community in which to live. As far as those lighting for the alleys, well, my neighborhood's still dark. We don't have any alley lighting down where I live, and our streets are still unsafe at night because they're dark. So if there's ways we can use some of that money to do that. I have also heard from business owners who said, small business owners who said, I may have to shut down. So if there's any way, after we've checked with the departments to make sure jobs are restored, that we can reach out and help some of those small businesses, I'd be open to that, because we don't want to lose all of our small businesses as a result of this. And lastly, I would like to see if there's ways that if there's any families that are falling through the cracks because they may have not gotten money, whether it's through the stimulus money. I would like to make some of that money, even if it's just a small portion, available to some families that may not have gotten the stimulus checks.
Okay, Mr. Kobach, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Graham, same question.
Well, first of all, once we get those guidelines from the Treasury Department, we're going to begin to have a meaningful discussion as a council on where we think that should go, and give our city manager and the administration marching orders. Ultimately, this rises to the supreme governing body to make that decision. I would like to see the Hurlburt House open, because 6.5 minutes is too far. Too much of a response time to adequately respond to the West Bluff Bradley University with high-rise buildings and to the West Bluff in general. It's way too much time. My goodness, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul. It was a travesty to close Station House 4. So I would put those resources consistent with those guidelines back into public safety right away. But while we talk about the stimulus package, just remember there's something coming afterwards, I believe, and that's an infrastructure bill for our entire country. If it's not laden down too many things that have nothing to do with rebuilding our ports and our bridges and our streets, we'll be the beneficiary of that. And also, we're about to begin the work to revitalize the infrastructure in our city pursuant to that consent decree with the EPA, with permeable pavers and rain gardens and green alleys and everything else that will be going into many of our neighborhoods closest to the river. Our best days are ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Kobach.
As some of the other candidates have mentioned, it's kind of a dream right now because we don't know the details, but here's what I would be dreaming about. One, I think it's important that we pay down our debts so that next year and then the next few years, we are not going back and making the same cuts that we've made before. We have to take a sustainable perspective to how we're going to spend this money. But here's the thing, this money isn't just for City Hall. This money is supposed to reach Peorians. And there's a lot of Peorians, like Ms. Jackson said, who are falling through the cracks. We are on the brink of potentially facing an eviction crisis, a utility shutoff crisis. And we need to make sure that these funds, using an equitable lens, looking at those folks who are most in need and most distressed, that they receive the support they need so that they don't have to worry about their water being shut off, their electricity being shut off, being evicted and living on the street. So we've got to use sustainability when thinking about our city finances, but also get this money into the hands of people who need it the most. And finally, an idea that I didn't get a chance to share is I believe we need to transition our city away from line item based budgeting to performance-based budgeting. This is a model that takes a look at how our programs using data actually impacting the city and meeting our goals as a city. That ensures that we're funding the things that work and not funding the things that don't, based on data, not based on the whims of a city council person and what they like or what they don't like.
Okay, let me check with my friends at the NAACP. Do we have the other 4 candidates on the line or in the waiting room at this point?
No, we do not.
Okay, then I'm going to ask another question. Would you oppose, support, or encourage a coalition of community organizations that want to look at the city budget for what the city government has done well over this past decades and should continue where they have fallen short, and what we need to do to retain or return our community to prosperity and the city government to health? And we will start with Ms. Jackson.
I don't think I heard all of that. Rob,
Okay.
you were kind of breaking up.
All right, I'll repeat it. And let's make the answers 1 minute, Alice, instead of a minute and a half. So when I get the other candidates on, we can make a transition. Would you oppose, support, or support a coalition of community organizations that wanted to look at the city budget for what city government has done well and should continue into the future, what they have done poorly and should stop doing, and what city government needs to do to return our community to prosperity and city government to health?
Yes, I would be in favor of that. As a matter of fact, I advocate restructuring spending. I think we need to put everything on the table. We know that the city has not been a good steward in terms of its commitment to paying into the fire pensions in the past, and it wasn't until the EPA put the city on notice about our combined sewer overflow. So yes, there are ways to better handle dwindling resources. And I do believe there are areas that there could be waste, or there are some areas where we could share services with additional city governments. So yes, I would be in favor of that, as long as we don't have to pay somebody to do that. I think that the record shows that the city has not been the best steward over city resources while managing the budget.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, same question. Long question, I know.
Thank you. Actually, the city has implemented a few years ago a program where we took the budget on the road to every single council district. And in the last 7 or 8 years, there has been an opportunity, even online, if you couldn't come out to those meetings, online you were able to chime in as to how you would like to see each of those areas in the budget increase, decrease, or provide suggestions. And so I'm happy to report that that is happening right now. Also, there's been a coalition of individuals and organizations that came together to chime in on the budget options. And so that is something that continues to exist. I can tell you there was Southside residents were the ones who received an award, Mr. and Mrs. Mosley, because they attended every single budget meeting when it was out in the public, no matter where it was. And unfortunately, I didn't see my opponent's name on any of those lists. So I'm glad that she's going to be involved in this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Kobach?
Yeah, I love this idea, and I don't know anyone who would oppose getting a coalition together to look at the budget, see how we can be better. But here's how I would approach it, and here's what I would advocate for if this came to be. One, we need to talk to fiscal experts. I think we need to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and BizPac when we're looking at money. but we also need to talk to communities that have been left behind. That's why in my campaign, I'm talking to students at Bradley who didn't even know that there was an election coming up before I let them know that they could register to vote. I want to talk to people who are struggling the most, because whether you're struggling from addiction, whether you're living on the street, you're my neighbor. It doesn't matter if you're a homeowner or a renter, you're my neighbor, and you deserve a voice in what the future of our city looks like. You know, we didn't get a chance to get into the community garden that was razed to the ground by, led by Mr. Graham, my opponent, but it showed that some person's voices aren't often considered when actions are taken in the city. And that's not going to stand when I'm elected city council member.
Thank you. And Mr. Graham.
Well, Mr. Kobach again made scurrilous, unfounded charges. I won't respond to them. I have at previous forums. Yes, I would be happy to listen to anybody with suggestions on how we can do better with our meager resources. But remember one thing, ultimately, the final decisions as to our spending blueprints rest with the elected representatives of the council. So elections have consequences. And then we give our marching orders to the city manager and his staff to carry out what we perceive to be, and what I hope will be, the will of our people. One of the great things we've done in District 2, certainly during the years I've been there, I wore the at-large hat before I became a district councilman, is to have colloquia to discuss everything that would affect our district. And that would include road projects or anything of consequence that is bothering the people at the time. And we'll continue to have those discussions and listen to anybody who has good recommendations. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll go to closing statements. And as a reminder, you each have 60 seconds for your closing statement. And for the first district candidates, Ms. Moore will offer her closing statement first.
Thank you. My opponent and I share the same first name. We go to the same church. We live both on the South Side, but we have very different approaches when it comes to serving residents. We're past the point of just meeting with people to talk about what the problems are. With a city that's busted, did Ms. Jackson find $12 million to fix Western? I did that. After doing nothing to help students at Tree Wind, did Ms. Jackson squeeze out $1 million out of the city and getting 5 other people to vote for it to fix Folker Street and the sidewalk in front of Tree Wind School? No, I did that. It's not about complaining there's no grocery store. Does Ms. Jackson have contacts in the business world to bring a grocery store to Western? I don't think so, but I did that. We've seen what happens when on the national level, you elect a popular person who plays to people's fears and frustrations, someone with no experience. On April the 6th, voters have a clear choice: experience over no experience, proven accomplishments over promises, commitment over complaint. I would love to hear your vote.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, NAACP and League of Women Voters. 57% of voters have spoken. February 23rd, 57% of the voters have said they want change. I have spent the last several years talking to people about concerns. Residents have indicated to me that they have felt that their concerns regarding infrastructure, their concerns about new affordable housing, their concerns about safe neighborhoods, their concerns about lighting have gone unmet largely over the last 7.5 years. Now, residents have told me also that they want a city council member who will listen to them, who will work with them to get the goals and objectives they want accomplished in a timely manner. And that is something I promise to do. We have been waiting 5 years for Western Avenue to be completed, and the same project has been completed in 6 or 7 neighborhoods throughout the city. We need accountability.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Graham, your closing statement.
Well, one thing that I learned during my years on the council, and especially as second district councilman, a district second to none, I didn't say it was better than District 1, I said second to none, is that our most important resource is our people and the intelligence of our people and the knowledge of our people, and working with them and listening to them and realizing that the council person, and I'm sure Mr. Kobach will agree with me on this, the council person is not necessarily the smartest person in the room. And that's why leadership involves including our citizens and discussing where we want our district to go, where we want our city to go. And we have been doing that. Coming out of this pandemic, we'll have a better opportunity to have those important face-to-face meetings, which will allow us to press the flesh once again, maybe not shaking hands, but to have more meaningful dialogue than via Zoom. And I thank you again for making this possible.
Thank you. Mr. Kovac.
Well, in closing, my name is Peter Kovac, and I'm here because we do face serious challenges in the 2nd District and across Peoria. Poverty, mental health, and lack of economic opportunity, they've all made our neighborhoods less safe. Small business owners are struggling to survive the pandemic and navigate City Hall's red tape. And we live in a city that's grown beyond our means and forgotten our core neighborhoods. I'm coming with a plan to address these challenges by reimagining public safety and integrating it with equity. And that doesn't mean getting rid of law enforcement. It means supporting law enforcement, empowering small and local businesses to start, stay, and grow in the 2nd District, and reversing sprawl and reinvesting in our core neighborhoods. Look, I've told you I've worked in our neighborhoods and I've worked in our local government, and now I'm ready to work for you around the horseshoe. So when you go to vote on April 6th, when you go to vote on April 6th, I hope you consider Peter Kovac for your 2nd District City Council person. Thanks to the NAACP, League of Women Voters, and the Peoria Public Library.
Well, and thanks to all 4 of our candidates here.
Thank you.
I thank you for 2 things. First of all, being willing to put yourself forward and run for public office, not always a fun and exciting thing to do. And many of us choose not to do that. And also thank you for being here today and making sure that the residents in your district understand what your positions are. And we can now, the 4 of you are welcome to leave. We've got the other folks, I think all of them waiting in the waiting room. We're going to let them in. And for those people who are watching and listening, you got to give us a couple minutes to reorganize just for a bit. So thank you all very much. Joe, video, please.
I'm working on it.
All righty. We only had to say you're muted twice in the first hour. Again, thanks, Dennis. We are, and just so you know, you're live now on Facebook, but we told anybody who was watching, we had a pretty good audience the first time. We had probably 7 questions submitted, which is good. We will start, your opening statements and closing statements are 60 seconds. Answers to questions are 90 seconds. Alice is our timer, and you'll be able to see the paddles. We are going to start for each district. The challenger will get to make their opening statement first. So that means Gail and Ryan will make their opening statements first. And then we will rotate back and forth. So for the first question, Tim and Dennis will answer first. And then we'll just keep going back and forth, back and forth. We actually got, I think this, we were a few minutes late starting. We got opening statements, 7 questions, and closing statements done in the first hour. So that's kind of what and we earlier were about 50 minutes. And that's sort of what we're going to aim for at this point. Questions from anybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. Then what I think we'll do is I'll reintroduce everybody and we'll get started. Good morning again to those of you who are out there watching and listening. I'm Roberta Parks with the League of Women Voters. I serve on the League board and I chair our Voter Services Committee. It is that committee that hosts forums like this, does voter registration, voter education, a variety of things. The League is very pleased to be partnering today with the NAACP chapter here in Peoria and the Peoria Public Library to present this forum. This is one of 2 that we've done this election cycle with the NAACP and the library. We do have the ability for those who are listening and watching us to submit questions. We've got somebody monitoring our Facebook page. And we'll pull off any questions and we'll try to do them. And we will get started first with our opening statements, for which all of the candidates have 60 seconds. And we will start with Gail Thetford, council candidate for the 3rd district.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the NAACP and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum this morning. I'm Gail Thetford. I'm a semi-retired attorney, currently serving on the Illinois Central College Board of Trustees, Heartland Health Services Board, Cornstalk Theaters Board, and I'm very involved in the community. Previously, I served from 1997 to 2005 on the Peoria City Council as the 3rd District representative. I'm running for the City Council now because I'm concerned about the trajectory that I've seen as far as the city is concerned. I've seen the city in the past 10 to 12 years consistently raise property taxes and or impose new and additional fees and cut services at the same time. I don't think that's acceptable. And as a result, I'm running for the city council, and I ask for your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riggenbach, also candidate for the 3rd District Council seat.
Good morning. And also, I would like to thank the NAACP and League of Women Voters for putting this together. We only wish we could be there in person with you all. I'm running for re-election because I believe that the things that I've helped accomplish in the last 12 years are significant, and I think there's more work to be done, and I'm excited to help accomplish that. We've worked in the neighborhoods. We've got a housing rehab program that has put over $500,000 into about 100 homes through the East Bluff. We've worked with businesses, whether it's the small business like Chef and the Baker or the larger ones like Natural Fiber Welding. We've been working with them to create head of household jobs. We're working to make the neighborhoods safer. As a father of 5 and a husband, I have a vested interest in making Peoria the best it can be, and I'm excited to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to the 5th District Council candidates. And first, Ryan Height.
Well, good morning. My name is Ryan Height. I am running for 5th District City Council. Again, thank you to the NAACP and the League of Women Voters. Really appreciate this opportunity. My background, I didn't grow up here. I've been in Peoria 18 years. I grew up in Central Illinois. My wife is from here. We are raising our children here. We're committed to Peoria, and I want to see Peoria get back to growth economically. I want our infrastructure to be improved for current businesses and residents. Public safety is included in that. And I'm running because I've been frustrated from a lack of communication and transparency in our city government. And I want to bring that into modern methods. And I want to be able to communicate to the district in ways in which they want to be communicated with.
Thank you very much. And next, I'd introduce Dennis Sear, I knew I'd screw these districts up sooner or later, 5th District Council candidate.
Thank you, Roberta, and thank you, the NAACP and the League of Women. It's my privilege to be with you guys this morning. You know me, I've been around many years in Peoria. I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. I became an American on September 3rd, 2004. So it's 17, this September, I would have been an American 17 years now already. It's really an honor to serve the people of the 5th District. I got involved 4 years ago. I am the incumbent, and I'm really proud of my record. It was important for me to be fiscally responsible, not to raise any property taxes, and really get involved with my homeowner association. And I've been telling everybody, people know me. I've been investing in the 5th District for many years. I work in the 5th District. I reside obviously in the 5th District. My kids go to school in the 5th District. So this is where I live. This is where I'm going to die. And really, it's an honor to serve the 5th District. And I'm really proud of my record. And I'm looking forward to serving another 4 years.
Thank you very much. First question, and it will go first to Mr. Riggenbach. What are the 3 most critical issues in your district? And please explain how you plan to address at least one of those.
All right, great. I think there's 3 things that I alluded to in my opening statement that are critical for us. Keeping our neighborhoods strong, healthy, and keeping them safe, and providing those head of household jobs. So they all kind of really dovetail together. And as we look at the reality of the situation, when I became councilman, we were in the throes of the great financial crisis of 2008. The revenues had fallen off the cliff. We were in basically the worst financial shape since the Great Depression. So the way city government operates has shifted drastically since that time. We've been very creative in our ways of providing that public safety, whether it's having the residential police officers in the neighborhoods like we have in the East Bluff, the resource center that recently opened at Wisconsin Plaza. That was a very great collaboration between Heartland Health, excuse me, and the police department and the city. But most importantly, I think making the people feel like their neighborhood is worth something. And the East Village Grow Sell housing program, like I alluded to earlier, putting cash in the pockets of the homeowners, helping them make the improvements is a huge step in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thetford, same question.
When I decided to consider running for the 3rd district, rather than deciding myself what I thought the most important issues were, I reached out to people of the 3rd district to try to determine what they thought the most important issues were. Interestingly enough, they tended to dovetail with what I thought, but again, I wanted to see first and foremost what they thought. And overwhelmingly, the most important issues to the people of the 3rd district are maintaining adequate police and fire protection and not imposing any additional fees or raising property taxes. So those are issues that I felt are important, and that's what the people of the 3rd district think are important. So with respect to that, one of the first things that I would do is restore the staffing with respect to our police and fire, first and foremost, and pledge that I would not raise property taxes, nor would I impose any additional fees. My previous track record on the city council for 8 years indicates that I never increased property taxes. In fact, there were at least 2 times that those property taxes were reduced. With respect to safety, I appreciate the fact that Councilman Riggenbach made reference to the Police Resource Center at Wisconsin Plaza. I will say that, again, no one ever does something by themselves, but as a member and officer of Heartland Health Services, I clearly played a role in the establishment of that center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gotcha. Now we'll go to the 5th district councils candidates, the 3 most critical issues in your district and how you would plan to address at least one of them. Mr. Sear, you go first this time.
Thank you again for the question. Basically, the people of 5th district are interested in 4 or 5 things. Number one, they want their representative to be fiscally responsible, which I have a 4-year track record, obviously, of doing that. Number 2, roads, and roads. I mean, our roads are very important because of the relationship I've built with people from the city and the county. I mean, we were able to, 4 years ahead of time, repair and completely redo intersection on Allen Road and then Willow Nose. We're able to redo Allen Road North because of relationship with the county again. And that was done 1 year ahead of time. And because of my relationship with the school, Dunlap School District, we're able to split the cost of building some crosswalk for children's safety. So my record is very simple. I mean, I've always been a team player. I've been in a lot of great relationship with a lot of people around the horseshoe and around the county, and things have been like, we're always want more. I mean, another road that needs to be fixed, the most important one I feel in the 5th district is obviously Pioneer Parkway. So we still got a lot of work to do. But with the relationships I've built over the last 4 years, I think I'm the main guy to get it done.
Okay. Mr. Hyde, same question.
Well, I think the 3 main things in the 5th district that I've heard as I've been out, number 1 is public safety. A lot of concern over proposed and voted on closure of the main fire station in the district. Number 2, business growth, jobs, and expansion of development within the 5th district. And then the last one, I believe, is a vision for the future. Where are we going? Our elected officials, business community, and residents all need to be on the same page. They need to be communicated with. And when we have a long-term plan that is comprehensive, that is agreed upon from the private sector, the city, nonprofits, when everyone knows and understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we're headed, that makes our community a better place.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next question will go first to Ms. Thetford. It's a diverse group of people around the horseshoe. And while the body and that you run nonpartisan, each person brings political views and ideologies to the table. What experience do you bring to the council that will assist you in building relationships with council people who do not share your political ideologies or philosophy?
Well, first and foremost, having previously served on the city council for 8 years, that certainly was something that I considered myself very good at, building consensus amongst individuals who didn't necessarily share the same political beliefs as you do. I mean, I currently deal with that as an elected trustee for Illinois Central College Board. We're a very diverse group of 7 trustees. We don't share the same political beliefs, but I think the important thing, regardless of the political beliefs of individuals you serve with, is to identify a common goal. And to the extent that I think there is a common goal amongst city council members to make Peoria a better place, hopefully to make it a safer place, and hopefully to live within our means, I think you can build consensus on that. And that's how you work with individuals with varied political beliefs.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Riggenbach.
Thank you. This is a great question, and I think it's one that I've shown through the years as I've been in public service how I do that, and it's collaboration. Before I was on city council, I actually served on the county board for 6 years, and that is a partisan board with Republicans and Democrats. And I was able to build bridges and work across the aisle, if you will, with people of any political persuasion. And I think my record as councilman shows that's been the way I've operated as well. Whether it's getting East Bluff Neighborhood Housing Service renewed, whether it's working with the homeowners associations to put in new sidewalks, the school board, the county board, as we worked with the county and the park district with issues on Donovan Park, I've been able to work with people of like-mindedness, but most importantly, you find those issues that are important. The reason I love being a council member as opposed to a congressman is because the things we do here in Peoria around the horseshoe affect my daily life. It affects your daily life. And you know what? When we put our arms around each other and lock arms, we can accomplish good things. And I think we've done it. And I think I've shown how it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Haidt.
Great question. And I've had this conversation with multiple people that sometimes we forget as a community that we are all on the same team. We really are. And those of us that are running for council, that on the council, we're on the same team, and we should be all fighting for the same things. My background, the way I grew up, I played football for 8 years and into college. It was the most diverse experience of people, and we rally around, and everyone has a specific job, but we're all on the same team working towards a common goal. So that was one of my first huge experiences doing that. And professionally, I've been doing that for the last 12 years on a statewide insurance association board. And I've worked with Democrats and Republicans with the state of Illinois, with the federal government, and we have worked towards a common goal on behalf of the insurance industry. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or your perspective, or what you believe personally. We're all on the same team, and we should work together.
Thank you. Mr. Sear?
Thank you very much, Roberta. Great question. I think this is probably one of my strengths. My brag around being a professional hockey player. I've always been a team player, and I think my record shows that regardless of your party affiliation, I've built a great relationship, and I'm endorsed by people from both sides of the aisle, from the township to the city council to the county. I mean, a lot of people I've worked with the last 4 years, and that's how I got my results done for the 5th district, because I'm already the incumbent, and I built those relationships already, and I got records to show it, and result to show it, which is even more important. And that's what I want to keep on doing. I mean, I'm a team player. I'm a part of a big team right now, and that's how I got things done in the 5th district. A couple of things I've done. Example, the coffee with your councilman. Now talk about communication. I got great communication, but there's 42 homeowner presidents in the fifth district. I have a relationship with all of them that do come sometimes to our coffee with councilmen. I have an outreach program for small businesses in the fifth district, and a lot of people are supporting me and talk to me all the time. So as far as communication, I think I've done a great job. And the most important part is any of my constituent, if they call me, they text me or email me, I have a 100% response program for all these people. So they know, people in the fifth district know if they try to communicate with me, they did receive a response. And that's no matter which party. And everybody I talk to, doesn't matter which party they had. They never ask if you're Republican or Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you. That's where I get the hook. Okay, the next question goes first to Mr. Riggenbach. Black residents of the city of Peoria have one of the highest poverty rates in the state. Poverty rate is about 34% for Blacks compared to a little over 9% for whites. As a council person, how will you work toward reversing that trend, and how will you lead with other elected officials, community leaders, and concerned citizens to participate to change this trend for Black Peorians? Mr. Riggenbach.
What a great question, and what a serious issue that we're facing. And so many of the problems that we hear as we're out on the campaign trail can be related to that. I think, again, my record shows a history of, but even before I was on council, I was part of the Black Chamber of Commerce with Larry Ivory. I met him during my days at Associated Bank, and we put together a program called Fresh Start that was a financial literacy and a program. This was particularly geared more towards individuals, but helping give people the tools to improve their credit score and get in the banking system and make themselves available to lending opportunities and things such as that down the road. Councilwoman Moore has established the minority business development on the South Side. And I think things like that are very critical in order to help equip. It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to just say, you know, give another program or something, but actually providing the tools is what's going to make the difference. We have very stringent requirements for minority and women-owned business enterprise participation in city contracts. That needs to improve, but the most important thing is providing the tools to equip these businesses to participate.
Thank you. Ms. Thetford?
I'm sorry, did you?
Yes, you're next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said someone else's name. I apologize. No. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I was a little confused there for a moment. Sorry
about that.
Okay, thank you for that question. Interestingly enough, you know, during the last 8 years that I've been working on the Illinois Central College Board of Trustees, you know, what our major focus at Illinois Central College has been to do our best to try to ensure that we provide opportunities for individuals in poverty and in the area to get that post-secondary certificate that studies and research show is imperative to reducing poverty and allowing families to have a family sustaining wage. So that's not something that can happen overnight, but education and those opportunities are really, from a long-term standpoint, are first and foremost. From a more immediate standpoint, we certainly need to provide housing assistance, both in terms of low-income property owners. We used to have significant programs for that. I think there's still some, but some of the funding for those have been cut. And we also need to provide support to those individuals that are living in rental housing, because that just exacerbates some of those living situations just exacerbate the poverty situation. We've undercut the rental registration and inspection program. That's not helping people who are renting. And then we need to also provide other supports in terms of funding through the CDBG programs. We need to make sure that those programs are fully funded. Thank you so much.
Now we'll move to the 5th District candidates. The same question. Mr. Sear, you're up.
I'm up. Did you say, Roberta?
Yes, your turn.
Okay, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, Black residents in the city of Peoria have one of the highest poverty rates in the state. The poverty rate for Blacks is a little over 34% compared to just over 9% for whites. As a council person, how will you work toward reversing that trend?
Great question. Well, I think the NAACP know my commitment to understanding the problems of the first district and low-income people. I mean, everybody knows that I'm originally from Montreal, Canada, which means I've never been exposed really to racism and segregation. But I've worked extremely hard the last 4 years to educate myself because I know that we do have problems. People know that I've read about 14 books on racism. I've watched about 4 documentaries about that, and I've talked to at least 23 of African-American leaders in our community just to educate myself. And I was the guest speaker at the NAACP meeting a couple years ago. So they know I've been working very, very hard to try to educate myself and understand the problems that they're going through. Now, I've never been Black and I will never be Black, but I'm working extremely hard to educate myself on that. Now, there's a lot of programs going on in Peoria that nobody mentioned so far, but Taft Home is going to get an investment of about $42 million in the next few years. We got last year, the city invested $8 million on the bridge on MacArthur. We got $15 million project going on right now to redo Western. And the Chamber of Commerce made a grant or started a grant that hopefully by the end of this year, we might get an extra $30 million for 6 months, 605. So there's a lot of great projects going on right now, and money's going to help a lot. And I'm very excited about all the projects going on, and possible project happening in the future. So, and the rest of it really is just.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
That's all right. Mr. Haidt, same question.
Yeah, so it's been said a couple times, a couple different people. The first step is educating ourselves, those of us who have not been through that experience, and then also providing education opportunities for those who are affected. It's one thing to make a rule or create a program. It's another thing to connect those people and have a relationship and have the courage to take action to get those programs going, to get people in whatever program that we need. I have some experience with our insurance association, the Independent Insurance Agents of Illinois. There's not a group that is more male, pale, and stale than independent insurance agents. And one of my goals was to create diversity and to get youth, especially in our industry. So I've worked with the National African American Insurance Association. I have personally hired minorities, and I have learned that you have to get involved, you have to jump in, and it's not going to take someone saying, hey, I've created a rule, so now everyone has to follow it, and now everything's going to be great. There's a lot of learning that has to go on.
Thank you. Next question. I think most of you know that I ran the chamber for several years, and I got really tired of hearing everybody talk about how hard it was to do business in Peoria. And so this question is going to kind of focus on that. But I'm not really talking about, in this question, about new companies coming in, but rather, given the year we've had and the impact that it has had on our existing businesses, what are your plans to support existing businesses given the challenges that have been presented to them of late? And Gail, you're first.
Thank you for that question. I think, first and foremost, and I know you say you when you were on the chamber, you heard about it being difficult to do business in Peoria. I would love to say that's changed. That hasn't changed. The establishment of the one-stop shop to help even existing businesses with issues, which was established years ago, is still struggling to actually assist existing businesses, not as you say, not to mention new businesses. But one of the things that we could certainly do with some of this influx of funds, and again, nobody knows exactly how much we're going to be getting as far as this COVID relief money is concerned, and nobody knows exactly over what period of time we're going to be getting it. But clearly, some of that funding could be, identified to assist businesses that have struggled during this pandemic. I know Peoria Heights specifically my understanding has given at least $4,000 to $5,000 to individual businesses in their community. I realize it's a smaller community. Perhaps we couldn't, afford that amount of a stipend, but I think as far as some of the businesses are concerned, they're going to need an actual influx of some funds to help them move forward and to either reopen or prosper. Thank you.
Mr. Riggenbach, same question.
Thank you. And first, let me say, I reject the premise. I think Peoria has made huge strides in becoming more business friendly. Anecdotally, and everybody's got an antidote, I realize, but I was at a dinner recently and some friends told me that they're part of this Church 214, which is renovating a building in the warehouse district next to Zion Coffee. And they told me, without any prodding from the councilman, how easy it was to work with the city, with the inspection department, with the code enforcement, with the code folks. So of course, there's always a one-off out there, but I can tell you huge strides have been made. As far as supporting businesses, though, we are really very focused on that. This year alone, in 2021, we have been able to distribute $1 million in grants to small businesses that have suffered because of the COVID pandemic. So we are out there exactly doing what your question was referring to. We've cut liquor license fees. We've cut the video gaming fees in acknowledgement of the fact that those revenues from those sources have also been cut drastically. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the steps that we've taken. And obviously, there's more work to be done. We need more jobs, but look at the investment OSF continues to pump into our community. And Unity Point, the medical community, is our new trademark, if you will.
Same question, Mr. Height.
Communication, communication, communication. So we need the organizations who have been created to help businesses. They need to communicate what resources they have, what their mission and vision is, and they need to communicate to the other organizations across town so that everyone can row in the same direction. So we've got organizations focused on development of downtown, organizations focused on redeveloping old buildings, people wanting to make new developments. And then we've got other organizations that are trying to get, visitors and people from out of town to come in, and how do we support those businesses that cater to those folks? So we need to communicate, and the city needs to make people aware of what programs there are, instead of having to know somebody that knows the secret handshake to provide information on how you can get a grant or how you can get help for your business. We need to do a better job of communicating what programs are available, who they're available for, and how do people get connected with them.
Thank you. Mr. Sear, same question.
Thank you, Roberta. Great question. Again, this is an area I've worked very hard on the last 4 years. Last year, I was the business champion of the year for BizPac 2020. In 2021, BizPac endorsing me again as the right choice for the 5th District. I am endorsed by the Peoria area realtors, and because of all the work I've done. And what kind of work I've done? Well, basically, I had an outreach program for small businesses in the 5th District. We met on a quarterly basis before COVID-19 started. And so I was able to communicate with all the small businesses in the 5th District and really listen to them, what their challenges are in the 5th District. And I was able to build great relations. And that's why I'm getting all these endorsements for small businesses. Some of the things we've done as a group around the horseshoe also the last 4 years that nobody talks about, we eliminated at least 300 pages from the city code. We cut fees in half. We eliminated some fees. So I think we've done a great job the last 4 years. And I have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Riggenbach, that sometimes we are the worst promoter for the city of Peoria. And I've done a survey a couple years ago also with Rotary up north and the one downtown, asking some questions about the 4-way test that we have, and asked them to send me an email about 4 reasons why they live in Peoria. And I got 80 responses, and I'm telling you, we just don't talk about all the positives Peoria has, but there's a lot of great positive we have here in Peoria, and we have to communicate that better with everybody.
Thank you. Next question will go first to Mr. Riggenbach. The city of Peoria is in the process of hiring a new chief of police. How will you work with the new chief, once hired, to improve police department relations with the community and foster transparency and trust?
What an incredibly timely question. I mean, I think the events of the last year have just shown us, again, to Mr. Hype's point, communication, communication, communication. And that can relate to every question that we've been asked here this morning. I had a very good working relationship with Chief Marion, and he had a very strong presence throughout the 3rd District and was always willing to meet with folks whenever specific issues arise. And I think that's an important characteristic that we need to see happen throughout the city. The Commission on Police and Community Relations is an important tool, but I think it's really critical that we collectively realize that community-based policing, more residential officers, things like the resource center, those are things that are really going to have an impact. Back in the day when I was a kid, there was a program called Officer Friendly that the police officers actually interacted with kids at school events. We've seen that with our residential officers, Officer Hightower and now Officer James. They've been great in getting out with the kids. The Law and Order Academy is something Officer Hightower started with one of our residents, and that's an important part. So communication on the streets is going to be critical in that hire. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thetford, same question.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I think it's imperative that the city embark on a fair application process and ensure that diversity is emphasized, and that there's certainly a look to the existing force for the chief, but also to the also looking outward if indeed that's necessary. Once that chief is put in place, as a 3rd District representative, I would want to know what his or her plan is with respect to staffing in the 3rd District. I would want to know what his or her plan was to put back into place the staffing positions that have been lost as far as the police department is concerned. I'm blessed to be endorsed by the Police Benevolent Association. I've had discussions individually with police officers who are concerned about the fact that there aren't as many officers in some of our troubled areas, including areas in the 3rd District. There aren't as many officers per shift, and to say that they are really functioning in a reactionary posture almost on a regular daily basis is an understatement. I'd also ask for some, at least a look at some additional police substations, or particularly resource centers like the one that currently exists at Wisconsin Plaza.
Thank you. Mr. Sear, same question.
Thank you. What I'm looking for really is a great communicator and somebody who will have the right experience to lead our police department. I had great relationship with Captain, or not Captain, but Chief Mitchell and Chief Marion before they were both retired. And I think it's important that both of them have been to my coffee with councilmen and really communicate with people in the 5th District what their goals were and what's going on around the city. But I'm looking for somebody. Now, Peoria is a small city, but we need somebody that have a big city experience. The reason for that is now we have a civic center, we have 4th of July event, we have baseball game, we got all kinds of big events. So we need somebody that's been has a lot of experience in the big city. Now we have 110,000 people living in Peoria. We have a police force of over 200 police officers. So experience is going to be very important. So I'm looking for somebody that's been exposed to those things. Number 2 is I said communication. Now it's important that it be a good communicator. I mean, we have, like I said, big problems, and we have some low-income population with a lot of problems, and we have crime problems. So we need somebody who can build a relationship and communicate well with everybody.
Okay, Mr. Haidt, same question, please.
I'll echo a lot of the same sentiments. Communication with our community, the relationship developed there is super important. So obviously we need somebody in there that is going to provide leadership within the department that is going to come with some new ideas, things that are on the forefront of training and the plan within, but then also they need to be able to communicate that plan. And when something is changed, something is done, an action is taken, that they need to be able to have the relationships within the community, communicate those actions, and then that will just improve relationship number one. And I think not all of our problems are going to be solved just by having a good relationship and communication, but those are the huge first steps in a good relationship throughout the community with the police department.
Thank you. The next question is one we ask of the 1st and 2nd district council candidates also. It appears to the average person on the street that homelessness is growing fairly significantly in our community. Ms. Moore pointed out that that just means the homeless problem has moved to the other 4 districts in addition to the 1st district. But there certainly are, homelessness is more visible, I think, in the last year than it has been previously. So what can be done to address both the safety of the homeless people and safety of people who interact with homeless people, as well as what can be done about bringing resources to address the issue of homelessness in our community? And Ms. Thetford, you're first.
Thank you for that question. Well, first of all, one of the things I've learned as a result of my being on the board and an officer for Heartland Health Services is that the most effective manner in which to assist our homeless population is to reach out to them. For instance, we determined early on that simply offering free medical care to homeless people wasn't encouraging them to come to you. You have to go to them. So our staff and our medical staff have been going out to the homeless. The homeless have given up on the system, which is to some extent why they're homeless in the first place. So the system has got to come to them. Now, so from a safety standpoint, we definitely have to ensure that that population is not overlooked in terms of providing, a safe homeless neighborhood, if you will, to them. So that's clearly a role of the city. Reaching out to them with, taking food to them, going to them and talking to them and working with them on other, other places they can actually live, whether on a temporary basis or on a full-time basis. But again, we have to do more reaching out. There's a tendency to sort of kind of say, here they are, leave them alone.
Mr. Riggenbach, same question.
Thank you. This is something that I've been particularly involved with, and Kate Green, who runs the Heart of Illinois United Way's Continuum of Care, has been a real leader. She worked for the city for a number of years, so we have an ongoing relationship. And working with her, I became acquainted with Chris Schaffner of Jolt Harm Reduction. And it's so refreshing to see organizations like this really stepping up to the plate and having that impact directly with the people who are unsheltered. We have worked very hard this winter. I don't know, this isn't something that really got a lot of play in the press, but there was a downtown hotel that actually took homeless people in. So the folks that were living under Murray Baker Bridge, for instance, were offered rooms in hotels during the winter months to make sure that they were safe. The amazing thing that I think we can do as a city is to help that continuum. And people go from being unsheltered to having that emergency shelter to maybe living in public housing. But now Peoria Opportunities is building affordable housing in the East Bluff. So we have an opportunity to take people from public housing into a home, and then we can help equip them for home ownership eventually. It's a process. It's a continuum, if you will, but I'm excited about the progress we've made, and I think good things are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Haidt, your response, please.
Yes, I agree with Tim. the continuum of care is huge, and we have made a lot of progress just in the last few years. 15 years ago, I was had a lot of friends that wanted to do something about the homeless, and we jumped in, and we found that there are a lot of organizations that provide meals, provide shelter, provide clothing, but there wasn't anything available on a Sunday morning. So a Sunday morning breakfast was started, and then you figure out, okay, well, we're here, but they don't have vehicles for those that are around. So, do we get buses? Do you go to them? But then the more you get involved, the more you learn from other organizations that have done it, that they've learned some things. You figure out what to do, what not to do. And, the people who are homeless don't always subscribe to the same set of logic and reason that someone said, well, you should just get a job and provide income and go here and seek that. Some of them don't care to know those things. Some of them aren't aware. So it's that whole continuum of care of creating awareness, educating the people, not only who are homeless, but the people who want to help in our community. And Peoria is an amazingly giving community. And half the battle is just telling those people where they can put their resources and time and effort.
Okay, we're going to do one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements. Constituent services is a significant. Pardon me?
Roberta, you want me to answer that question?
I'm sorry. I knew I would do this sooner or later. Every forum I do, I skip somebody. You got the chance to do it this time. So I'm sorry. Mr. Sear, we'd like your answer on that. My apologies.
It's okay. It's okay. I think everybody on the call covered all the answers, really. I mean, we have a very generous community here in Peoria. And my favorite, really, the 211 call where Heart of Illinois, United Way is doing an outstanding job for everybody that needs services. But that was one of the research I did a few years ago with Rotary up north. We have so many great organizations here in Peoria, but what we need to do is reach out to all those people first. And we know at the end, what we really need is affordable housing. If we can provide affordable housing for everybody that needs a home right now, that would be tremendous. But all these organizations we have right here in Peoria, from Heart of Illinois to AMT to Southside Mission, Salvation Army, just to name a few, I got a list of maybe 30 or 20 or 30 different organizations that helps out all the time every year. So I think we're doing great strides into helping these homeless people, but we just need to get out there and reach out to them and tell them all the services that we have available so we can help them out.
And again,
thank you, Roberta.
I back up and start over again. Okay, one last question. And for this last question, you only get 60 seconds to answer, and then we'll go to closing statements. A significant portion of every district council person's job is constituent services. My garbage hasn't been picked up, my snow hasn't been plowed. How do I get this done? Whatever. Can you talk specifically about how you will handle constituent services if elected or re-elected? And Tim, you get to go first on this one.
Thank you. Constituent services is really where the metal meets the road for a lot of folks. And as a councilman, I think I'm kind of like the quarterback of services, because there's a lot of things that I get calls on that have nothing to do with what the city is doing. But if it's a city related issue, oftentimes if I get an email, I'll forward it to the appropriate department head, whether it's public works, whether it's community development, to the patrol officer in charge. We will immediately engage the appropriate people within the city. Making sure that the constituent knows that their response has been heard is important, even if it's something that they're calling me that should be a state or federal issue, to call them back and let them know that this isn't something that I can help them with, but I would send them here. That's important. So being the quarterback, being the communicator is the most important thing I can do.
Thank you, Tim. Gail?
Yes, I actually, have had some experience with constituent services before. So sometimes it's simply addressing an individual's need. Their garbage doesn't get picked up. And you work with PDC or whoever the garbage person is. Sometimes it's a more global neighborhood issue, and you can work with representatives of a homeowner association, and hopefully they'll be able to start meeting again. Sometimes it's just responding and providing information. Sometimes it's suggesting they contact Peoria Cares, and if that hasn't been helpful, ironically, I've already been addressing. People have already been emailing me, asking questions, what have you, about events. If there was a big snowstorm and a street wasn't getting plowed, I would have the cell phone of the snowplow guys to try to let them know that, you know, school buses and what have you are having issues with that street. So we have email, we have cell phones.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you, Jen. Okay, I'm not skipping Dennis this time. So Dennis, how are you going to do consistent service?
Thank you, Roberta. I mean, that is the part that I enjoyed the most about being a councilman. I mean, being a public servant is a great, really responsibility. And my record shows, just by the relationship I've built with these 42 homeowner association I talked about earlier, the fact that I probably have 100% track record of returning either phone calls or emails or text messages. Anybody in the 5th District contacted me with some type of concern, they receive a return phone call from me. That's just the part I enjoyed the most about our responsibility, just being a public servant. So, 4 years ago, that was one of the pillar of my platform, doing what I just talked about. So I'm looking forward to doing this for another 4 years, because that's the part I enjoyed the most about the job.
And Mr. Height.
Yes, the Peoria Cares app and phone number, email has gone a long way towards constituent services. So big believer that you need to acknowledge when someone calls with their question or whatever. They want to know that they are heard, that they are listened to, and they need the information. So my job as 5th District Councilman would be to take those phone calls, emails, questions from homeowner associations, listen to those issues, let them know where they can either find the resources or that I will connect them or have a resource get back to them on whatever the issue is. So it's communicating, listening, and then, as Tim said, playing quarterback and letting them know how to solve their problem.
Right. Thank you all very much. We will move to closing statements. As a reminder, again, you have 60 seconds for a closing statement. And Gail, you're first for the 3rd District Council seat.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the NAACP and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum today. I'm running for the City Council because I'm concerned about the trajectory of the 3rd District and the city. I'm concerned about the continued imposition of fees. It's nice to know that the council has reduced some of the business fees as far as businesses are concerned. It would be nice if we could maybe look to eliminating or reducing some of those taxpayer fees that have been imposed more recently. Perhaps we could use some of that influx of funding to assist in that effort. But the people of 3rd District are telling me what's most important to them is public safety, adequate police and fire. That's continued to be cut. Police and fire have become the scapegoats as far as the city is concerned in terms of addressing their fiscal woes. And people are telling me they are tired of higher taxes.
Thank you, Gail. Tim, closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the league. Thank you to the NAACP for hosting this, and hopefully we'll all be live soon. I'm running for re-election because of my commitment to our neighborhoods, to business, and to public safety. You know what? When you look at what's happening throughout our city, I've got the endorsement of BizPAC, the local business political action committee. I've also got the endorsement of the Labor Council of Central Illinois, and I'm being supported by the West Central Building Trades. Imagine that kind of collaboration, working with business and labor to create jobs, to provide those head of household working opportunities for the men and women of Peoria. That's the thing that we need more of, collaboration across the board. That's something that I've done the whole time I've been councilman. That's something that I've learned to do with 5 kids and a wife around the dinner table. So I would ask people to continue to support me, to vote on April 6th, and we'll take Peoria to the next level. Thank you very much.
Mr. Height, your closing comments.
The people of the 5th District pay some of the highest taxes in the entire city, and they expect to get core services for that. They don't expect those services to be cut, particularly with public safety. And they expect new ideas, and they expect growth as far as number of homes, number of businesses, jobs that are available to them. And they're ready for a change. And so that's why I'm running for 5th District, is to communicate in modern methods, to be an advocate for public safety in the 5th, and a new vision for business growth.
Thank you. And Mr. Sear, last but not least.
Thank you very much, Roberta. Thank you very much to NAACP, the League of Women Voters. It's been a privilege to be spending time with you guys this morning. 4 years ago, I was elected, and I made some promises, and I kept all my promises. And I promised to be fiscally responsible and make the tough decision, and I did. I promised I would not raise property taxes, and I did. I promised I would fix as many roads as possible, and I did. We got some great projects done in the 5th District. And obviously, I promised that we would be safe in the 5th District. And my track record shows that, especially with public safety. Okay, my stations are open and will be open. And I was able to build a relationship with AMT, and we got now a new home right here in the 5th District for AMT. So public safety is even getting better in the 5th District. So I made promises. Like I said, I kept those promises, and I think I even delivered more than I promised. And I'm just asking for your vote on April 6th, so I can keep doing the work I've been doing the last 4 years. Thank you very much.
And I apologize for that little running back and forth. Somebody knocked at my door. No one ever knocks at my door. I live in a condo. I want to, first of all, thank Alice Jackson from the Peoria Public Library, our esteemed timer, the Vanna White of this particular forum. And I want to thank the folks at the NAACP. They have done all the technical work on this. And we have 2 folks here from the NAACP who have supported this, and we really appreciate it, and their organizing committee. It was a pleasure to work with both groups. But I also want to thank the 4 of you. Running for a public office is a challenge, and it's not a challenge that many of us are willing to take. So just the fact that you're putting yourself forward and running for office, we appreciate that very much. And we appreciate very much you being with us today. This forum will be on both the Facebook pages of the NAACP and the League of Women Voters, and Alice is going on the library and on the library's Facebook page also. So please let your constituents know, and other people who have been watching, if you want to have other people are interested in learning about the district council candidates. And then let me echo what most of the candidates said. Please go out and vote on April 6th or before then, if you feel the urge. It is an important part of your responsibility as a citizen of this country and of this community. And I think Mr. Riggenbach is the one who said that local government is the one that's closest to the people and that affects our lives most directly almost every day. And this is an opportunity for the voters of the city of Peoria to help shape the future of that government. So Alice reminded me that there's early voting at the main library next week. So there's a location you can go if you want to vote early, and certainly at the election office also. So thank you all, the 4 candidates, very much. Thanks to the NAACP and the Peoria Public Library and my cohorts at the League of Women Voters. We appreciate you all being here, and enjoy the rest of the day before it starts raining again. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to the NAACP, guys.
Thank you.